With that, we're going to kick it off. The first session, our first speaker, again, needs no introduction. Dr. I.J. Singh from New York, who has been a professor at New York University for several years. He first came to the country in 1960. He's held in very high regard by everybody, and I know because my 2 teenage sons have been taught by him, so they hold him in highest regard. So of course I know that as he comes to us from New York and other facets of life. He also writes for Nishan and for the Sikh Review, and most of you read his readings. So without further ado, Dr. Sahab, I will invite you to Khalsa. Would you prefer
one? And sometimes I wonder how I got into this situation. I'm an anatomist by training. I dissect people, not ideas. But ideas is what we're going to talk about. I'm going to talk a little bit about the structure of religions to begin with. And I come to you from what I would call the functional model of organizations to explore simply, even simplistically, how religions take root, how they continue to exist. Now, individual humans, if you look at it, are neither sufficiently swift nor strong to survive the existential dangers that lurk everywhere. A newborn is too fragile to independently thrive. And no man is an island, entire of itself, as John Donne reminds us. Hence the need for social institutions. Now, Emil Durkheim, who lived about 150 years ago, a preeminent social scientist of the times, envisioned the concept of what we call sacred as the defining characteristic of religion. But not sacred in the sense that we look at often as something that is supernatural. Not that. But more as a reflection of the need of a society. And what then becomes sacred or profane emerges from the shared history and heritage of a people. And simple analytic tools will help us figure that out. Religions become and remain the glue that binds families, class, societies, communities, even nations. And Durkheim further suggested that group and communal dynamics, that is religious assemblies and congregations, create the essential effervescence or spirit of the community. For us, that would be the Sangat. And religions reinforce collective priorities over the individual interest. Self-interest needs to be driven and balanced by a collective code of expectations and behavior, which then becomes the people's morality and a framework of ethics, a series of what is right or wrong. And that then regulates individual human practices within the community and makes possible collaborative interaction inside or outside of the community, creating a self-sufficient collective. Now, this exactly is the benefit of a congregation or a Sangat, as I see it. Collective wisdom that transcends that of an individual, more powerful than the individual effort, no matter how well motivated it is. Says Guru Granth, in Sangat God is to be discovered, mil sat Sangat khoj disai, which Sangat har prabhvase jiyo. Sangat also provides a way of spanning the intergenerational divide that haunts us forever. Pita Put Ralkini Sanj, that's from page 114, I beg your pardon. But what to do when there is deadly disagreement in the Sangat and God seems not so easily accessible? Says the Guru Granth, Hoye Katra Milo Mere Pai, Dugda Dur Karo Levlai, Har Name Ki Ho Jodi Gurmukh Beso Safa Bichari. In others, come together in an ambience where the Guru's presence prevails. In such assembly, explore all doubts, go forth clear in heart and mind. Now, keep in mind, two religions extant at the time when Sikhi arose in India, or Hinduism and Islam, continually at loggerheads with each other. Muslims were the minority but politically dominant. Hindus the majority but internally divided by caste, where the high and low caste never ever communed together. How then to recapture and reframe the interrelationships of humans with each other, the Creator and the creation, How then to articulate today, centuries later, in our global village, what Guru Granth is and what it is not? There are multitudes of issues here when we look at the Guru Granth. Each deserves a whole chapter, if not a book. But today, I will hint at them and I'm going to paint them with extremely broad brush strokes. And that's what I will do. The first and foremost message that reverberates countless times in the Guru Granth is the opening alphanumeric, Ik Oankar, that Guru Nanak designed. Now, I call it alphanumeric because it took the Arab numeral 1, denoting singularity, merged it with the Sanskrit word Oankar to speak of a single creator found in the creation. If one can envision the singularity, its immanence and transcendence, then there is absolutely no room left for differences in caste, creed, color, gender, or nationality. And as Guru Granth proclaims, there is no enemy or stranger, na ko bari na hai begana. Now clearly some attributes are both social as well as divine, if you wish to call them that. That is equality, liberty, fraternity and justice. And they stand out as the cornerstone of an egalitarian society. And these two are inherent in this formulation. And I would submit to you that the entire Sikh worldview is inherent in this alphanumeric. All else is commentary. The Lord first created light, then from that came all creation. Allah Rupaya Kudrat ke Sabdamle. This leaves no overtones of familial, communal, national, racial, genetic, or cultural bias in God's bounty. Then there is no exclusivity of doctrine or dogma that pigeonholes people. Effectively, we are all equally chosen people then, or none is. And this is when true interfaith connectivity with an equal place at the table of society is possible. Durkheim views society as an organismic analogy of the body, wherein all the parts work together to maintain the equilibrium of the whole. The religion is then the glue that holds the society together. And I would argue with you that this model is very much an echo of the vision within the Guru Granth. It's not surprising, therefore, to see very little direct history in the Guru Granth, even though the process of the compilation took over 200 years. There are many languages in the Guru Granth, and also the writings of 6 founding Gurus of the faith, several saints and bhagats that come from both Hindu and Muslim lineage, some of low caste, in fact many who would never ever break bread together, much less be caught on the adjoining pages of the same holy book. And that is exactly where the Guru Granth placed their writings, on the adjoining pages. I further submit that this makes Guru Granth a true interfaith compilation in which exponents of both the Hindu-Vedantic and the Judeo-Christian Islamic traditions found space. The founders of the faith personally selected what went into the Guru Granth. There's only very minor disagreement on its authenticity. And that makes it historically unique among the many scriptures that define our pluralistic society today. Very few historical events find mention in the Guru Granth, like the advent of the Mughals into India, who created an empire that lasted a good 2 centuries, paralleling the beginning and the growth of the Sikh faith. Now, historical detail would have limited the timelessness of the Guru Granth by trapping it in time and space within a fixed ethno-cultural context. Now, contrary to what may be found in other scriptures, there is absolutely no mention of a sin quotient, no compendium of sins committed or contemplated. On the other hand, there is plenty of what constitutes ethical conduct. There is copious social history in the Guru Granth, which is very necessary if the purpose is to create an evolutionary movement within society. For instance, Muslims pray 5 times a day. And there is crystal clear explanation in Guru Granth of what each prayer should mean to an observant Muslim. Let compassion be thy mosque, faith thy prayer mat, honest living thy Quran, Mir Masih Siddiq Musla Haq Halal Quran. To his followers who came from Hindu tradition, Guru Nanak was just as straight. On the matter of wearing the sacred thread, the Janev, he said, out of the cordon of compassion spring the thread of contentment. ties a lot of continents, giving the twist of virtue. Now, most converts to Sikhi came from Hinduism, so much of Sikh teaching is directed at the larger Hindu community and the religion and social customs, like the many food taboos, the unquestioned place of the Brahmin and the pyramidal apex of the caste-driven society, the high place of the cow, the ironically low place of women and low-caste Hindus, and such matters are dealt with very forthrightly in the Guru Granth. I'll give you a few examples. On the sanctity of caste, be not proud of your caste, jaat mein garab na kariyo koi, or garabvas mein kul nahi jaat. In the womb, no one knows his caste. And then the same hymn goes on to bluntly ask, what makes you a Brahmin and I a Sudra? If blood runs in my veins, does milk flow in yours? Now on women, you know all I can tell you. And Nikki, I guess is not here yet, but there you are. She's the expert to me on feminism and women, that part of Sikhi, so I'll say nothing much about it. In the Indian system then prevalent, the right of the widow to remarry did not exist. The widow was expected to immolate herself in the funeral pyre of her dead husband. Evils of the dowry system and female feticide were common. Women were forbidden to read Hindu scriptures, but they did exist as Vestal virgins and dancing girls within the temples. Now Guru Nanak rejected these practices forthrightly. I will not repeat the hymn that you likely hear every morning as part of Asa Divar that goes Pand Jamiya Pand Nimiya Pand. Viyaho Pando Hove Dosti Pando Challe Raho. In rough translation, if a woman be conceived, if a woman be born, if a woman be betrothed and married, a woman is friend partner for life. For a woman alone is born a woman, without a woman there is no human birth. Now, on food taboos, Guru Granth does not advocate any, except those that harm the mind or the body. To drink and eat is natural and right. Khana pina pavitra hai, nitton rajak sabai. In a series of couplets, Guru Granth pointedly warns us to eschew the false pleasures of an ostentatious lifestyle. The pursuit of anything that ruins the body leads the mind astray. I offer you only one verse as an example. Baba hor khana khushi kwar, jis khada dard pidiye, man mein chale bekar. The idea of God is not a fearsome presence in our life, but like a parent, both mother and father. Tu maat pita hum bharat tere, on page 268, Harji Mata, Harji Pita, page 110, and many, many more. But think for a moment, it's a remarkably unusual, refreshingly modern idea of deliberately not assigning gender identity to the Creator. Finally, Guru Granth posits a very human challenge: what footsteps will you leave in the sands of time? Is Rira Meria Jag mein aaye ke kya tudh karam kamaya? Now, it asks us to discover, develop, nurture the spark of divinity that exists in each of us. And even more directly, a similar thought found on page 492. So Murak jo aap na pehchane. The fool is he who has not found himself. It seems to me that the emphasis, in fact the whole purpose of life, is to develop a sense of self, to find oneself. And for this, then, the Guru Granth asks us to live a life in Hokum. What exactly is Hokum? It does not mean to live as if God micromanages every moment of our lives. I think the idea is more in sync with an ancient Greek prayer, somewhat of unknown origin, that asked God to grant me the courage to change the things I can, the serenity to accept what I cannot change, the wisdom to know the difference. And the hardest part, the most difficult skill is the third part, the wisdom to know the difference. Very clearly, there are many, many things that I can affect, that I can change. And just as many, if not more, that I cannot. So the first part of the prayer to me refers to the free will that has been given to us, has been granted to us. But then to elegantly accept that many matters remain outside of our purview and control is also to walk in Hokum. In the final analysis, Hokum to me says us to live each moment fully and productively, to live in each moment. And then to accept what is given to us as grace or nada, where our liberation lies amidst a life productively, well and joyfully lived. Asandhya, Karandhya, Penandhya, Kavandhya, Vichya Hove Mukta. Now, to succinctly convey the essence of Chardi Kala in English, the best I can do is to give you an essay title that I once had in one of my books. When life gives you a lemon, make lemonade. You have 5 minutes or 5 seconds? No problem. No problema. A couple of words about science and religion. And I shouldn't really be talking about it too much because you have a fuller essay on that this afternoon. But there is nothing in Guru Granth which posits a debate or contradictions between science and religion. Which such a thing can be applied or inferred. There's nothing in Guru Granth of that kind. Science discovers to us the rules of nature and how things work. Religion tells us what they mean. For instance, science has discovered and can teach us how to harness nuclear technology and even build a nuclear weapon. We need religion and morality to tell us why we should build one, and what use, if any, should we make of it. Now, the Guru Granth and the compiler Gurus recognize that the changing world will surely deliver many new technological, scientific, bioethical challenges in our plate every day. How we respond to them will be weighed according to our then current knowledge base that is continually changing in social realities as they exist. Yet our foundational principles remain unchanging. Our responses will account for both imperatives. There is no reason or compulsion to reject what science tells us unless scientific evidence clearly so suggests. In a nutshell, science speaks of how, religion mostly informs us of why. In a purpose-driven life, the two imperatives, how and why, should never be sundered. They need to remain seamlessly merged. Are they in conflict only if we misinterpret them? The ultimate reality is defined as one that our senses cannot perceive and our intellect cannot fathom, but with which our soul can commune. The human mind, no matter how vast or capable, remains finite and fallible, cannot possibly take full measure of what is infinite, and it's immaterial what name we give this entity that we term the ultimate reality, Vaheguru or Creator. Keep in mind, the Guru Granth uses many names to address the Creator, mostly from the Hindu lexicon, some from Islamic tradition. And if you peruse the Jap Sahib, which is Guru Gobind Singh's composition, not in the Guru Granth, the list of attributive names virtually endless. In my view, the purpose of the whole exercise is to impress in the mind a simple fact. Our finite intellect and language cannot hold in itself what we know to be infinite, in that it transcends our very human faculties. The founder Gurus practiced not a unique but a decidedly remarkable way to connect to that universal connectivity through divine music. Most of Guru Granth is cast in the intricate raga system of classical Indian musicology. The Gurus were extraordinarily talented musicians, and it's a tradition that's still very much alive in Sikh practice around the world. Now, making a life and making a living are two very different but interconnected matters. Putting food on the table and making a living, and there are a myriad ways of doing so. Guru Granth focuses instead on how to make a life. Life is to be lived here and now, not as an afterlife in a different planet, place or time, which दुनिया से कमाइए तदर गए बैसन पाइए. Says the Guru Granth, अमल कर धरती बीज सर्दों कर सच की आग नित दे पानी, होए किसान ईमान जमायला धिष्ट दोजक बुरे एव जानी. In other words, it says, O fool, know this as your heaven or hell. Know this as your heaven or hell. Your deeds are the soil. The Guru's word is the seed. Divine truth, the water whose runnels make fertile the fields. The farmer who farms this field reaps the fruit. And then Guru Granth tells us how life acquires meaning, and the best way to find the self is when life is driven by a cause bigger than the self. It says, Aap gavaye seva kare taam kich paaye maar. The living word and Guru, revered, not worshipped, referred by the Gurus as Sajjan. The only rough and ready translation of Sajjan that I can offer is soulmate. Remember that soulmates are rare, not dime a dozen, takes time to cultivate one. Our world has changed since the installation of Guru Granth. But remember this, Guru Granth speaks to us today as it did to countless 6 centuries ago. It helps navigate life in the choppy waters of today's multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-global village, as it did in the realities of Punjab then. And thus Guru Granth becomes unique, timeless, universal, and a thinking person's guide and guru. And now you can tell me the time is up. And thank you very much. I know you were privileged with it, and I thought question, yes. Why is the measurement method of recommend that your part my class, it don't work. Or my mind doesn't. Recommended method of reconciliation. Gurmukh, Lactose, Safa Vichai. Not working. Oh, what we have to do is look in the mirror. Do we need to create additional institutions here? Why isn't it working? The best answer is with you. The questioning mind. I think there is Socrates somewhere who said the best answer to a question lies in the questioning mind. The best answer is within us. Why isn't it working? Every community or nation or country requires a method of resolution of internal conflicts, for which we have the judicial system in the secular society, and a way to negotiate, navigate national conversations on issues that are of importance. That is how you change the rules. Look at the constitution of this country. Amendments change the rules, but amendments come after a very long process of deliberation. Women got the right to vote in 1920, 150 years after the country was founded. It took a lot of time, struggle. Look at the civil rights thing and the steps over 100 years it takes to change things. But we have to recognize that there is a way how differences can be resolved, and that differences are healthy. Out of conversation comes progress. The Gurus willed us and gave us an embryonic system of such conflict resolution, the Sarbat Khalsa. The national conventions that started in the Guru Ram Das's period. Sikhs would come twice a year to the Guru to negotiate, to talk, to deliberate on issues that were important. We have preferred to let those institutions die rather than develop to deal with our realities. So that's not an answer, but it is. I could talk to it for hours if you wish, but you do not wish, I assure you. Guru Granth Sahib explains the true worship for Hindus and Muslims using their symbols. Sikhs do not have ritualistic symbols. So what does worship or prayer? Sikhs do not you have a couple of questions inherent in there. You say Sikhs do not have ritualistic symbols, and then you say what does worship or prayer become, for Sikhs. I would say that when Guru Granth teaches you is to focus your mind so that what you do, from the most secular to the most religious, it's driven with your total attention and dedication. And then, I would add, it becomes worship. Even if you spend your life making widgets or playing basketball, it can become worship with a single-mindedness of purpose. I don't think any God needs us to flatter Him for 1 hour a day or 24 hours a day. That if we flatter Him enough, He's going to let me win the lottery of life. if a god needs flattery, it seems to me that's a lesser god not worthy of worship. And I know I'm deliberately saying these things to see if I get myself into trouble. That's part of the intent. Because if I get myself into a little trouble, you will wake up to a more energetic discussion. And if you achieve something out of the discussion, then that discussion was a worship. Believe me. Worship is the attitude with which you approach humanity and the creation. That's why I started with organizations, structure of organizations. Religion is the glue that unites you to a common purpose. And I prefer, ritualistic things. When Guru said, make faith your prayer mat, to Muslims. If it becomes a prayer mat, then it is useful. If it's a meaningless phrase, then it's a ritual. In other words, the difference between a ritual and a meaningful practice is two things, two questions. First, you need to ask, why am I doing it? And second, you need to ask, what am I getting out of it? Okay? The typical classic example I give is my Irish friend who used to stop every bar along the way as he went to catch the train. A colleague of mine. And the first thing he used to do when he entered school to his office was, or when he left the office. When he left the office, he would take his wedding ring, put it back on his finger. When he entered the bars, he took it off. So to my mind, it seemed that his wedding band was just a ritual that was on his finger. It had no meaning. Now, if there was a meaning to the marriage, and then he's wearing that wedding band, then people would give that finger, cut the finger rather than take the wedding band off, then it has meaning. Then it's no longer a ritual. Alright? So if the long hair, the keshas, and the turban connect you to a shared heritage, that's why I started with Durkheim. A shared heritage gives it the meaning, makes it sacred. What becomes sacred is this. Otherwise, what is the difference between sacred and profane? Not the fact that I bow my head to the Guru Granth, but is there a meaning to my bowing the head? Is there a state of mind that reflects it? That makes it sacred. So what is the ritual to you? Only you have the answer. What to do about it? You have the answer. Okay, I think I have 3 and I must have missed 1. Religion is supposed to unite groups. I thought we took care of all. No, is that right? Did I leave one out? Anywhere? Yeah, well, religions are supposed to be the glue that unites people. But of course, I think sometimes glue can be a bit like crazy glue. And it does become like that. When religions become exclusive, not inclusive of people, and want to shut the rest of the world out, or declare that you are not the true followers, we are the only ones for what the hammer has been made for us, or whatever, and you're going to burn in hell forever. And when they judge you, when they sit in judgment, then that's crazy glue. Not easily separated. Now, and we have them too. The Taliban do not just exist in the Middle East, they exist amongst us also. How can one make use of the wisdom? I like to quote one line of Guru Granth for that, Tittha Mukt na hovai, jichar sabad na kare vichar. The sight of the Guru Granth isn't going to save you or liberate you, not until you engage with it. I interpret the word darshan as an engagement, not the sight. Okay? And an engagement does not occur until you converse. You can sit here silently and I can keep here talking. Did were we even here? The only proof of that is when we engage in a discussion, a conversation, and some differences. It's in discussion and debate that we sharpen our focus, define our goals, hone our skills. That is the way the Gurus taught. Okay? And that's a long-term thing for another day, and I know you're itching to hold up the sign. Okay. Thank you.
Wrong place for them to sit.
No, the right place for them to sit. Right place for them. Exactly the right place. If a speech or a class in school, wherever you go to school or college, if a lecture there does not make you somewhat slightly uncomfortable at the end, leave you something to think about, then it may as well not be there, you may as well stay at home and slept. Right?
Thank you, Professor Saab. Encourage you, Thank you once again. So a quick recap, Jay Casino, questions. If you have any questions, there are some index cards lying there next to the shutters. Please go and